there, and welcome to the Secrets of Organ Playing podcast. I'm your host, Vidas Pinkevičius. Today's guest is Peter Van Toor, who is a post-doctoral research fellow at the University of Leuven, Belgium. As a scholar in musicology, Peter has specialized in the counterpoint pedagogy and historic improvisation and composition. He studied music pedagogy for 5 years at Brabant Conservatory in Tilburg, master in musicology at the University of Utrecht, and master in music theory at the Royal College of Music in Stockholm. Peter's PhD dissertation, called Counterpoint and Partimento, Methods of Teaching Composition in Late 18th-Century Naples, highlights the practical teaching strategies at the Neapolitan conservatories during the late 18th century. In 1995, Peter co-founded the Gotland School of Music Composition, where he has been teaching music theory until 2014. In this conversation, Peter shares his insights about his PhD dissertation, which is now available as a separate publication, where he discusses teaching methods of composition, including counterpoint and partimento, in the southern part of Italy. So basically in the school of late 18th century Naples. I hope you will find this conversation inspiring, because for people who are interested in historical improvisation, his insights will reveal the historical methods and techniques that could be used even today if you want to learn some polyphonic techniques to improvise on the organ or any keyboard instrument. Let's go to the show. So, Peter, I'm so delighted we're having this conversation, that you will be sharing your insights and research about counterpoint and partimento teaching and composition teaching and in late 18th century Naples. That's a very exciting region that not too many people know about, right? Everybody knows about Toscana, about northern Italy, right? About Renaissance style composition teaching, right? But maybe late 18th century is kind of a little bit tricky. Yes, we do know about Italian continue practice. Gasparini, right, was one of the treatise our authors, but to teach partimento, which is basically a polyphonic composition extemporized, improvised, right? That's a very fascinating subject. So thank you so much for your generosity, and welcome to the show.
Thank you. Yes, I think you're right. There has been some neglect for Italian music theory and both the music and the theoretical issues involved for many decades, and maybe it is part of the fact that Italy maybe was in the shadow of the German musicology, and many musicologists have had the opinion that, well, what is there besides Zarlino? Is there anything of worth which could enrich our musical environment today?
But you know, I feel, Peter, sorry to interrupt you, of course, but I feel that late 18th century Naples, basically southern Italian school, right? Yeah. This school it has the key to improvisation, right? Because Zarlino is very, let's say, complex. It could be well suited for composition, for writing stuff, right? For let's say, motets, right? And masses, and even keyboard Richard cars, right? But for writing, right?
You're right.
But for improvising, you need to start somewhere, you know, less polyphonic, let's say. So that's where Naples come in.
Yeah. What I mean to say is that this notion is still very new. I mean, Zarlino has been discussed a lot, and he has been, I mean, we know a lot about it, but this notion about the Neapolitan improvisation culture is only, I mean, it has been discussed for a decade only, which is a very short time in musicology.
Frankly, what I know about Neapolitan culture is Neapolitan chord, right? You know, Neapolitan 6 chord. That's the famous second lowered scale degree chord. It always sounds major, even though it's major or minor key, but you have to pick a lower scale, second scale degree, and build a major chord out of this, and then play a first inversion chord based on this. So in C major it would be D flat major first inversion chord, F, A flat, D flat, right? So that's everybody in academic world knows about Neapolitan, right, culture. What, of course, opera is also very significant. But what you are talking about, Partimento, right? And what is it? Can you describe what Partimento is?
Well, Partimento is, you could compare it with thorough bass, Generalbass in Germany. The difference Bass and Partimento, and I must say there is no general consensus about the definitions of these terms. But as I see it, there is a difference between Generalbass and Partimento in the way that Partimenti were specially designed for educational purposes. For a number of different functions. It was not only used for improvisation at the keyboard, but it was also used in writing activities. So it was a multifunctional device that has its roots in the Italian basso seguente. So the basso seguente was, you could call it an organ part, where you always play the lowest sounding part in a score. So if you have a score and the bass is silent, then the organist jumps up to the tenor part and follows the music from that part, since it becomes to be the lowest part. And this tradition of playing basso seguente, which organists did in the 17th century in Italy, became to be used in the conservatories of Naples as an educational device to learn students not only to improvise and to diminish music, but also to learn to compose. So it was... and that is one of the new things that I think I have presented with my doctoral thesis, that the definition of Partimento must be defined a little bit wider than has been done previously by other scholars. So I have discovered that Partimenti actually appear in counterpoint notebooks. So they are there in the bass lines of exercises that numerous students have realized in their student work, and nobody really have discovered this relationship between the playing exercises and the reuse of the same material in counterpoint writing. So that is I think a very important key issue also that defines the difference between Partimento and Generalbass.
It's interesting, Peter, how organists of 21st century can use this late 18th century technique, the centuries-old technique to learn composition and improvisation, especially in polyphonic style today.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think what is so unique about Naples is that the Neapolitan conservatories in the late 18th century, about in the 1790s, they were in decline, and the King of Naples decided that there should be a library. And the library has collected a lot of material which was all around in Naples, and this library still exists. So there is a rich material of educational matters from the whole 18th century collected in the library of the Conservatory and Partimenti. We can find solfeggi and many other things that can give us clues and keys to how students improvised and learned to improvise. So there is a methodology of working which is very difficult to find in other regions in Europe.
So, what inspired you, Peter, to get more research, start deeper research on late 18th century Naples composition method technique?
Well, I am educated as a music theory pedagogue, so I have been teaching a lot of counterpoint, and I have for many years realized the problems involved with counterpoint education, that it takes a long time to learn the style, it takes a long time to learn the rules, and it's a long way to become skilled to write a 3-part motet in Palestrina style or something like that.
Because entire year takes just to learn 2-part species of counterpoint, right? First species, second, third, fourth, and fifth. That's a general mode of teaching of today, right, in academia.
And one of the reasons why it has become so difficult for us today is, of course, that we learn it all through rules and not through playing anymore. And so this is the key issue for me, to get involved with playing stuff, to put pieces in the hands of my students which they can realize in an improvisatory way and in a playful way without thinking of any rules. Of course you need rules to correct them, and you need to explain things, but you can learn a lot of things by using your intuition and your musical your feeling for the music directly on the keyboard. So that is what is the reason why I think there is so much to get here in Naples.
Do you think, Peter, that in 18th century musicians were mostly rooted in practical things, right? They learned some basic ground rules, but they immediately jumped in and practiced on the keyboard, right? Sometimes, yes, they wrote things, but in order to do some practical work like composition and improvisation, they just did that for starters, and immediately did some practical work. Do you know, Peter, why this type of method of teaching changed to what it is now? Just dry rules in writing, and even not too many people sing those beautiful counterpoints in theories classes, right? That would be great, even though.
Well, the reason is a 3-letter word, and it is the name of Fuchs. Fuchs is a fantastic book, but it is completely focused on the writing traditions. Although, of course, Fuchs also learned through improvisation and so on. So it has been of course you can make a book if you count on that the music is all around anyway and people will play anyway. So let's make a book in which the rules are practiced. Okay, then you get this Fuchs book, and it survives many centuries. But the whole improvisatory musical world around this book when it was written has gone lost. So we need today, if we want to learn a form of counterpoint and harmony, which is a blend of counterpoint and harmony would be perfect to teach today. But then we need to have a combination of a good system of teaching the rules, but also to have improvisatory material to put in the hands of our students, to make them play and to make them improvise and to make them fancy things, so they can make things up even without a prefix exercise which is being given by the master.
One of my students, showed his harmony exercise. Harmony was given a soprano melody, and he had to supply 3 missing lower parts in class, in writing. And he did that, and he showed it to me, and I asked him, "Have you ever played what you written?" "Oh, no. It's sort of not forbidden, but he is afraid, right?" And I said, try. And he played those 8 measures and said, "Wow, it sounds like real composition. I can't believe I wrote that, And it's so beautiful when you apply those rules. So many people could do some practical application of theoretical rules as well in order to get some beauty out of their rules.
It would be beneficial to do it the other way around, I think, to start playing and to start making music and then to reflect about the rules afterwards, because that's the way we learn to talk. That's the natural way of learning a new language.
True. We imitate other people through practical applications, right? And then only in school learn rules for grammar, right? Rules for composition and other things. But we've been talking and conversing in our native tongue for, let's say, at least 6 years, right? So going back to Naples in the late 18th century, Peter, what happened there? What did you find out in your research?
Well, many things. One of the things that I discovered was that even in Naples, with these 3 conservatories there were big differences between the different schools of Naples. So there were 3 conservatories in the late 18th century, and they were called Onofrio, Loreto, and Pietà. And one of these 3 schools, the Pietà, they taught according to Leonardo Leo, which was the big master who had been teaching there in the early 18th century. And there has been a quarrel about this whole issue. I should say also, the other 2 conservatories, Loreto and Onofrio, they were ruled by Francesco Durante. So you have the school of Durante, which governed 2 schools, and the school of Leo, which governed 1 conservatory. And there has been a quarrel about this in musicology, whether there was a conflict between the school of Leo and the school of Durante. And people have said, well, we don't have any evidence about this, and it might be a kind of mythology which has appeared in the 19th century to make the school of Bellini stand out as the better school. And I found evidence that these differences and this quarrel between these 2 schools was real, and that it was all about counterpoint methodology. So the difference between the school of Leo and the school of Durante is that the school of Leo, if I put it very briefly, they taught students to become church musicians, and the school of Durante taught the students to become opera composers. And the opera composition need a different kind of counterpoint methodology, because they were supposed to write arias and recitatives, and they need to have a thorough involvement with the text and of a bass. Okay, so you always write over. In the School of Leo, it was the opposite. There you needed to, the big goal for counterpoint education was to swiftly be able to sketch a 4-part Amen for a Dixit Dominus. If you have a half an hour, you should be able to write a 4-part fugue for the end of the psalm motet, and that was of course very difficult, and it was a time-consuming business to learn to sketch 4-part fugues. It is there, but it is much more downplayed. The melodic counterpoint is much more existent in the School of Durante.
Mm-hmm. So you could say that Leo school is more polyphonically inclined, right? And Durante school is more for arias and operatic work.
And you see that also from the composers that came from the School of Durante. There are many good opera composers which were successful in all over Europe. The School of Leo had, of course, a little bit problems, because church music was not as popular as the opera in the 18th century. So there are fewer composers from the School of Leo that became really European stars, so to speak.
Mm-hmm, 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 mm-hmm. Of course, polyphonic music was more popular in the 17th century, right? In the 16th century, of course, with Renaissance. But in the late, especially 18th century, it went out of fashion, right? And German music remained more polyphonic than Italian, longer at least, right?
Yeah.
So interesting. So how would composer like Leo teach Partimento in the 18th century Napoli?
Yeah, I think the thing, when you study Partimento, you should look both at the Partimenti but also at the counterpoint notebooks. Mm-hmm. So the counterpoint notebooks give us information about how lessons were structured, and what I have seen by studying these both things is that the counterpoint notebooks, they tell us that the Partimenti were mixed with the counterpoint studies. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the easiest Partimenti, they were done parallel to writing studies. So there was a lot of writing being done too. It's not only a practical school, the School of Naples. I have found students that wrote more than 1,000 pages of exercises, mm-hmm. which is a lot. Only if you think about the costs of the paper for these students. It was an enormous effort they did also by writing. So they worked very, very hard. That's for sure.
That's true. Would Durante school also write those exercises just like Leo school?
Absolutely, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But the goal was different, right? And the result was different.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
More opera compositions than church compositions. Uh-huh. Yeah. I see.
And you can also see that in the Partimenti. So if you are looking to Neapolitan Partimento style, you can recognize the School of Leo, because the School of Leo has such Partimenti where you can recognize certain measures that are to be played above each other. Mm-hmm. You see, all of a sudden, measure 6 can be played above measure 1, and measure 1 can be played under measure 6. And vice versa.
That's invertible counterpoint, right?
Yeah, always invertible counterpoint stuff in these Leo style partimenti.
Oh, that's very clever.
Yeah, and people have not really realized this because you don't get any textual information. So it's only if you have schooled your eyes to see it, you can see it. But if you don't know it, you don't recognize it.
It's just like Johann Sebastian Bach. He was copying fugues by Corelli and Albinoni and others, and fugues by Reinken, who also was influenced by Italians, right? And he would think later in his organ compositions and keyboard compositions just like this. You could play soprano and lower part, let's say alto, and then invert them, right? In octave, right? Soprano drops one octave lower, and alto stays the same. So soprano in reality becomes a tenor part, and you have those permutations. It's called permutation fugue, right? All over the place. You can even have two counter subjects, three parts in combinations. Basically permutating with one another throughout the piece, just like in Passacaglia in C minor. We have this system. Do Italian, the Naples school, also uses similar permutation techniques? Do you think?
Well, the general way of doing is the fugue is different from the German fugue because often you have a very early entrance of the counter subject. So you have a subject and a counter subject at the same time, and the counter subject is often called soggetto servile, so the helping subject. So if you listen to Neapolitan fugues, you hardly hear long solo themes. Almost always you hear two voices starting. So the theme and the helping theme start together. And that's what, of course, there is a reason for this, because the whole goal for the player is to memorize the theme and the helping theme and to more easily be able to improvise the stuff. Because I think in many cases, a master could give a theme and a helping theme to the student, and they just play. Okay, so it's a matter of creating the fugue on the spot with only that material.
So you have basically, in modern terms, a subject and counter subject, yes, the soggetto servile, as you say, and then you invert them as you want. You keep the tonal plan in mind, what comes next, right? Tonic, dominant, and then maybe dominant, tonic, and that's the plan for exposition and counter exposition. And
there is one other thing too which should be mentioned, that because of this partimento notation, this way of sketching, the Neapolitan fugues often have diagonal voice entries, starting with the highest voices and then going down. So the entrance soprano, alto, tenor, bass is much more common than bass, tenor, alto, soprano. And the reason for this is obvious, because if you try to notate the upgoing diagonal in partimento style, you get big problems. But if you do it the other way around, if you start with the soprano and then you take the alto, then you can continue to write the soprano above. And as soon as you jump to the tenor clef, then you can start to write thoroughbass figures, which take over the lines which you have started earlier. So for partimento notation, the downward directing diagonal voice entries is much more suitable, and that you hear in many Neapolitan fugues, this downward.
You mentioned, Peter, different clefs. So in 18th century, people and students had to really get more familiarity with soprano, alto, and tenor clefs beside the treble and the bass clefs, right? So when you have those sketches, let's say sketches for fugue, right? That's what partimento is. You have one line, but you start the notation not with the bass clef, but with soprano clef, because it is the upper voice, right? And then after a few measures, alto comes in, and then tenor.
If you have a partimento fugue, it's almost always soprano clef, then alto clef, then tenor clef, then bass clef. And the clef changes are necessary because they signal the entry of a new voice. So it's very difficult to transcribe these pieces into G clef and F clef, because you lose the information which was essential for telling the student, look, here we start with a new theme in the tenor. So you need these signals.
Right. Do you have you met students who are afraid of different clefs and only want to play in treble clef and the bass clef?
Yeah, well, this is a matter of pedagogy. I mean, a clef is not a big thing. You can learn a new clef in half a month or a month, and it is like a key that gives you entrance to a new building. I think one of the most astonishing things in modern musical education is that people don't put too much time in learning new clefs. It's very, very wise and rewarding to put some time in learning new clefs, because it opens up your world enormously. So that is maybe, if you should give one advice to young students in music, it would be learn all the clefs, because you can read so much more and it doesn't take too much time.
So there are basically three types of clefs, right? G clef, F clef, and C clefs, right? G clef is one of them is very familiar, like treble clef, but the second one is less so, right? The French clef, which is written on the first line, not on the second, right? And the G note of treble G is on the first line, which is kind of one third higher than the normal. It's a higher clef, right? So then we have F clefs, three different types of F clefs, right? That famous bass clef, which is on the fourth line. Then what we have baritone clef on the middle line, right? And then if you write this F clef on the fifth line, you get what? Basso profondo, the very low F, which indicates that on that line you have tenor F, right? And you can still go below that for entire octave or lower, right? That's very low clef. And then five types, of course, of C clefs, because you can write on every single line this C note, and it would be indicated that the middle C, middle C would be on the first line, second line, third line, and so forth. Soprano, mezzo-soprano, alto, tenor, and the last one is what? Baritone. No, not baritone. Remind me, what is the C on the fifth clef? Probably on the fifth would be lower than the tenor, right? Yes, baritone.
If I may put them in the order in which I think young students should learn them, the G clef should be done first, then the F clef, then the C3 clef, so the alto clef. After that, the tenor clef, and after that, the C1 clef. The tenor clef is the C4 clef, and after that, the C1 clef. With these clefs, you can read almost everything. The other clefs, I neglect a little bit, the French clefs, because it's such, I mean, in Naples, you never use the French violin clef, for example. It's only in certain regions in Europe where these clefs are common. So with this set of clefs, you can do almost everything. You can read all the scores. You can read the fagotto in orchestral scores and everything.
Mm-hmm. So it's very, very wise to learn different clefs. Another benefit that a student has in learning, right, different clefs is in improvising fugues. You can just change the clef in your mind, and you will transpose the subject into a different key, right? It's one of the methods of transposition, basically changing the clef, simply.
Yeah, well, you need to learn to read the clefs, but you also need to write every clef. So it's reading and writing.
So, Peter, of course, in your research, you probably came across with different previous findings of other scholars, such as Langlot's manuscript, right? And that's a German source for learning Partimento, more of like Buxtehude type fugues, right? Fast-moving instrumental fugues. What are they? Have many things in common with the Italian school, especially Naples school, or they are completely different?
Well, there are differences because you can see that these are not Neapolitan fugues, but I think there is a common root for this tradition, and it's obvious that the south of Germany, in the late 17th century, was very much influenced by the traditions in Rome and in Naples, because of the Catholic Church influence, of course. And organists were trained to improvise versetti for the liturgy, and these versetti improvisations were a kind of methodological basis for learning to improvise the fugues. And fugues were also used in service. So there is, of course, a general tradition that connects these two countries, even though people have started to apply it differently and so on. So there are both similarities and differences.
So yeah, I would suspect that Leo school would find the type of German Partimento style more applicable, right? Because of the church. They also had to improvise versetti in Italian liturgy, right? So, but what is versetti other than the short fugette or a, let's say, fugue with just the basic outline for entering exposition and counter-exposition, perhaps, right? One page, small polyphonic piece, soprano, alto, tenor, bass, and then soprano, alto, tenor, bass, but in different order, right? Tonic, dominant, and then again dominant, tonic, tonic. That would be a basic versetti. And if you have, let's say, a collection of psalm tones, right, or a hymn that you have to play in alternation, you can change the meters, right? You can change the rhythms of that subject, and you would have like 4 or 8 even versetti based on the same key, on the same subject. That's what probably every Italian organist would do, right? Every Catholic organist back in the day would do.
Yeah. Absolutely, and that was a standard thing for in education too. You see that also in the Partimento, in the Partimenti of the early 18th century Naples, you find many what I call versetto Partimenti. They are very short, and they only play the lowest part in, and the rest is added by realizing it on the keyboard with Thorovas figures.
And even Handel used his polyphonic skills in his continuo teaching, right? And Partimento technique really appears at the end of his continuo treatise too. A few exercises, right? Maybe slower than Langelot's manuscript would suggest, not instrumental but maybe vocal type of counterpoint, but still it is a polyphonic composition.
You see, in Handel, he was for a long time in Italy and learned a lot of things in Italy, and so I think there is a great influence from Italian Partimento style, which has influenced Handel's skills in writing vocal fugues, for example. That is a very much Italian tradition. I mean, we know Handel as the big expert of the vocal fugue, and that is no surprise given the fact that he was a lot in Rome and in Naples and learned these things down there.
Do you think, Peter, that in 21st century people are starting to realize the importance of inclusion of Partimento technique in teaching counterpoint and improvisation today?
Definitely. I get almost every week I get some mail from a distant in the world where people have started to realize that the thorough the dry exercises that is being done with these old German textbooks, it just doesn't work anymore with many modern students that have been learned through YouTube and so on. It's a different time. We need to have methods which involve our abilities to imitate and to be playful on the keyboard. So there is a new era of music theory coming. That's absolutely sure.
You're probably referring to the treatise by Marburg, right? Abhandlung von der Fuge, where he analyzes many Bach's works, right? Because Bach never wrote sort of polyphonic treatise, except he created like Art of Fugue, right? And Well-Tempered Clavier. And other works too, polyphonically very advanced. So Marburg would analyze those and make a treatise for 18th century students in order to imitate and sort of continue the Bach tradition. But it is very theoretical approach, right? Today, if you look at it with fresh eyes, it's very difficult.
That is the paradox of this whole issue. We often have a tendency to be attracted by the books. We look at the books. This book is this printed book and that printed book. But if you look at the Neapolitan traditions, they hardly printed any books. They had almost no printing firms. They wrote everything by hand and they learned from the master to the student. That's why we have forgotten about it. But the real value of my research, I think, is that to recover these handwritten stuff, which are telling us about the improvisatory ways of dealing with fugues and dealing with counterpoint, instead of the written textbooks and the printed textbooks from the German tradition. So I think the value of this handwritten stuff has not been fully realized yet. Yeah.
And what the end result for the today students would be if one would be, inclined to take a peep and really try to learn Partimento of Italian school? What would you envision as a goal for that student? What he would or she would do afterwards? What maybe improvise fuguettes, obviously, right? What else?
Well, the goal, I would say, is to become such a musician that you have control over the composition yourself as a musician. Okay, the musician should not only be a musician, but also an educated composer. Okay, so if you are playing a Mozart piano concerto, you should have so much confidence that you can do something with it which is tasteful and in style, without offending Mozart, of course. But you should be able to do something with the music as they did in those times. Everybody had the ability in those days to get into the score and to make changes and to feel free. The score was only a framework to make music. Okay, and we have had so much respect for these so-called genius composers. I mean, we call them genius, and that's a tradition that we maybe have to re-evaluate. There is a great benefit of thinking of the handwork and the craft of the musician to become not only skillful in playing, but also to become knowledgeable as a composer at the same time. Mm-hmm. And that combination is I think very good for today's musicians to. Yeah,
I like how you described, Peter, that the score was just a framework, a sketch basically to expand, right, in style, not to offend, not to abuse, but to use creative forces to make more embellishments, right, on the repeats if it's a binary form, right. It's very self-explanatory. But
of course, this was a gradual process. So in the Renaissance, you can really talk about the framework. In the late 19th century, it is very much fixed, and it has been a gradual process towards that. But today, we really need to in order to make music theory more fun, I think we need to rediscover the joy of making music without all these rules and without all these thick textbooks. We don't need them so much as we have done before. We can play a lot and we can have a lot of fun and become very good.
And lots of composers loved this freedom in the early ages, right? But then Beethoven showed up and said, no, you should perform it exactly as written, right? Because he was angry with perhaps less stylistically appropriate interpretations of his day, right? And he fixed everything. So then everybody adored Beethoven, oh yes, master, and started to look at the score as a holy Bible, right? Absolutely. So, Peter, thank you so much for your time and insights today. I hope people will understand and feel inspired to really take a look at what can be done with this kind of continuo and partimento, especially counterpoint teaching and learning, and how it can serve the needs of today's organist and practical musician, right? Not only you will be able to create small fugues on the spot, but you will learn to probably look at existing compositions very strategically, and you will know right away what's on the page, right? What was the process that composer went through in composing a, let's say, Passacaglia or Ceccona or a fugue especially, right? So that's another benefit that we should mention, right? So thank you so much.
For our listeners in the Netherlands and in Belgium, I can tell that tomorrow I am moving for a 3-year period to Belgium, where I will start a new a research project at the University of Leuven, and that will be focused on the fugal improvisation in Germany and in Italy. between 1670 and 1750.
Oh, that's an earlier period, right? You research end of the 18th century, and now you're going back in time.
Going back.
Right.
That's right.
Right. So that would be your future research, right? Very interesting to find out more when you have some new insights to share. So thank you so much, Peter, again. And where our listeners can find more about you, your work, and Partimentos?
Well, my thesis can be found. Easiest is perhaps to Google me with the word UU part. UU is abbreviation for Uppsala University, which is my alma mater, and part is abbreviation for Partimento. So UU part as one word. If you Google that, you will find my Partimento database, and from that you can find my thesis, and also you can contact me if you want.
And is there anything else you want to mention or visit our listeners to visit online after this conversation? Your maybe research projects that you're doing? Anything else?
Yeah, well, much of the things I have published is available on Academia, the research network. So if you Google me on Academia, you will find me, Peter van Toor.
Peter van Toor in Academia. Great. I'll make sure I will include those links into the description of this conversation so that people can physically click on the link and go to directly. Great. Thank you so much, Peter. Good luck in your research. And I'm very eager to find out more about 17th century and beginning of 18th century counterpoint teaching that you will be researching later on.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Let's keep in touch. Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
If you liked this conversation, I encourage you to visit my blog Secrets of Organ Playing at organduo.lt, where you will find lots of insights, practical advice, and training for every area of organ playing. You can subscribe to this blog for free to get your daily dose of inspiration and to be the first to know when any of my future podcasts roll out. I hope to help you reach your dreams in organ playing. I'm Vidas Pinkevičius. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you online really soon.